Well, hello. I'd like to welcome you to this interactive presentation of The Giver, the graphic novel version. What we're going to do here, this is an interactive video, so I'm going to play the role of a teacher, just actually talking you through reading the book. Along the way, we're also going to pause to point out important vocabulary, to give you a moment to reflect and think about a topic, or to give you an opportunity to answer questions. And in the end, there will be a quiz over the content and the literary skills that are involved. But overall, we're just going to walk you through it just like we would in a classroom. So let's begin by taking a look here at the front cover. Now, I know they say that you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, but that's exactly what we're going to do. Because honestly, when we look at books, either on the bookshelf or in a bookstore, that's exactly what we're doing. So here we have the title, The Giver, and then we get this great visual. So above, we have a kind of like an above and a below. This looks like it's in water. Here we kind of see these ripples and waves. So it's like a reflection in the water. So above the water, we see a silhouette of a person on a bicycle, something here in the basket. Then when we look down below, it's full color. And if we really look at it, it looks like maybe the head of a child inside this basket and a young man here on the bicycle. Now, we don't know yet what this means, but it does give us some idea of what we're going to be looking at. So it's going to be dealing with colors. We have a kind of a young teenage person maybe that we're looking at, young adolescent, and something with a child and bicycles. It at least gives us some sort of clue. As we go on to the next page, we see that it's just a title page, but we get another image here of this apple. We see the author's name, adapted by. We get some copyright information, and then we move on to this dedication page, which says, "For all the children to whom we entrust the future." Now, the dedication at the beginning of the book is where the author says who they dedicate it to, which is sometimes a friend, a family member, but in this case, it's for all children to whom we entrust the future. So she feels obviously that this book is significant enough for all children to read, and that it has some role to play in how they shape the future. So that seems important. So with that, let's just jump in and start looking at chapter 1. Now, as we go, we're going to be talking about visual information along with words a little bit more. You'll get some refreshers about how to actually read a graphic novel. But here we've got chapter 1. So the chapter numbers are going to pop up here for us at the top. And let's look at the visual information first. We see people on bicycles, some people standing around talking, some nondescript buildings, and we have this probably our main character here in the center that we're getting introduced to. And here, this information is our narration. And then over here, we have what in this case is thoughts. So thoughts come out with little bubbles and then show up. Narration appears all by itself. So the font isn't any different, but where that information is and how it's presented gives us a little clue about what it is. So it says it was almost December, and Jonas was beginning to be frightened. So he's kind of frightened by something. Then he says no, or he thinks, no, that's the wrong word. He says frightened was the way he had felt last year when an unidentified aircraft had overflown the community twice. So we see this jet or airplane flying overhead. We see the people here looking up. This guy, they're kind of looking like they're shocked. This is something they don't see. So obviously, we're dealing with a community that's a little bit different than our own, because most places around the world, it's not going to be shocking to see a plane fly overhead. We have lots of planes in the air all the time, but for them, this is a shocking event. We don't know why yet. It says he had seen it both times. He had seen the sleek jet, almost a blur at its high speed, go past. So we see everybody in the picture looking up. They're kind of watching in awe and kind of curiosity. And then it says, and a second later, heard the blast of sound that followed. And you see him here with his hands over his ears. That probably refers to a sonic boom. So when jets go faster than the speed of sound, it creates a sonic boom when they break the sound barrier. So that's probably why he's covering his ears. And it says, then the jet came by one more time, the same plane. And here the look on his face is quite a bit more worried. Not sure why this is happening, trying to make sense of it. So on the next page, it says at first he had only been fascinated. He had never seen an aircraft so close, for it was against the rules for pilots to fly over the community. So it's not that an airplane is strange, it's just they're not supposed to fly over communities. And he was at first just curious about it. And it says occasionally the children watched from the riverbank when supplies were delivered by cargo planes. So they do have planes come regularly and they can go see them. But it says they took off directly to the west, always away from the community. So again, they just don't fly over the community. And you see children here kind of on a riverbank, sitting and watching planes take off. So you can see this large kind of cargo plane here, 4-engine plane. So then in the next panel, but the aircraft a year ago had been different. It says Jonas had seen others stop what they were doing and wait confused for an explanation of the frightening event. So everybody has stopped, they're watching, they're waiting. And then all of a sudden they get what looks like an announcement from a speaker. So here, this is a speech bubble, but these kind of lines of lightning that you see show that it's either really loud or in this case it's coming from a speaker. So it is loud enough for everyone to hear. And it says, citizens, go immediately to the nearest building and stay there until further notice. Leave your bicycles where they are. So everybody is looking up. They're waiting for this sort of instruction. They don't know what to do. And so I guess they all leave their bicycles where they were. So instantly it says Jonas had run indoors and stayed there alone. So it looks like he's in a pretty dark place. He had gone through a couple of doors. It says the sense of his own community silent waiting had made his stomach churn. So he's sitting there watching outside the window, waiting to see what had happened. It says, but it had been nothing. So again, we see him outside and it looks like the community is safe. And it shows again the inset of bicycles just tossed on the ground. So again, we see that people had panicked. They were frightened. They did exactly what they were told. They dropped their bicycles. They went indoors. And finally, we get the explanation for what happened. A pilot in training had misread his navigational instructions and was desperately trying to make his way back before his error was noticed. So then we see the jet go by again. So on the next page, it says, needless to say, he will be released. So we have these 3 loudspeakers. So apparently they go out through the community. And the same message is coming from all 3. So you can see these the little tails here that show where the words are coming from. Now, we don't know what released means. I mean, we know in our own lives that to release something means to let it go, maybe fire somebody or to make them go away or something. But in their instance, we don't know exactly what it means. So it could mean that this guy's going to be fired because he made a mistake as a pilot. Jonas is looking out again and it says, there was an ironic tone to that final message, as if the speaker found it amusing, though to be released from the community was an overwhelming statement of failure. Okay, so first of all, we get the word ironic, which means when something happens that is different from what is expected. So in this case, something serious was said in an amusing way. And we get a little bit more clue about what being released means, because he says to be released from the community is an overwhelming statement of failure. So it's something that happens maybe when you've done something wrong and you're released from the community. So it's kind of like being exiled in some way. So it's in the next panel, it says, even the children were scolded if they used the term lightly. So scolded means that you get a talking to, or you get somebody tries to teach you to do something differently. And it looks like some younger kids here are playing ball. And it says, that's it, Asher, you're released. Probably because if you follow this line, the ball bounced and went past the child that's with the glove. So they're playing baseball, and he missed. So therefore, this child says he's going to be released. Then it says, Jonas, taken aside by his coach, had hung his head in shame and apologized to Asher. So this is Asher, and this is Jonas. So they're obviously friends playing at the time. And this is the school teacher pointing at Jonas in the face and apparently explaining to him that this is a serious thing and we don't make jokes about it. And it says, now, thinking about the feeling of fear as he pedaled home, he remembered that moment of stomach-sinking terror when the aircraft had streaked above. So again, we see the aircraft streaking above.